Hey guys, before we get into this video, YouTube has sadly forced me into a position where I kinda have to get close to e-begging territory. Thanks to how poorly this platform handles copyright law, this and nearly all of my movie reviews have been hit by copyright strikes, either causing them to be ineligible for monetization or just sending whatever ad revenue I would have made to some company that might not even be legally allowed to collect on that property. After uploading this specific video, old YT went with a former option, meaning that for the next 2 weeks, I'm not making a dime off this video. I have filed a dispute, but I have 30 days for them to respond, and at any point they can just deny my dispute because when I think fair, I think giving the party most likely to benefit from copyright infringement the power to decide what is and is not copyright infringement. So if you're able to, maybe consider supporting these financially damning but really fun to make videos over on Patreon. I've really enjoyed challenging myself by switching up my typical style to review these movies, plus it adds a bit of completeness to incorporate these cinematic offerings into my full series retrospectives. Now, I know the easy way out would most definitely be to leave the movies alone and continue just covering the gaming side of things like I've been doing for years, but I don't think what will and won't make money should factor into my creative decisions here. A fact that should be made clear by my absolutely schizophrenic approach to what I cover on this channel. So if you're in the lucky position where you can support an idiot who would rather give in to his inner feelings to tell assholes like this to go fuck themselves than to ensure he can continue to pay his rent, well, I'd really appreciate it. Support from my crew over on Patreon is very much the reason why I got into doing these retrospective videos, and they will most certainly be the reason I keep doing them. Hopefully I've been able to put together content here on YouTube that you deem worthy of backing, but if that's not the case or you're understandably not able to justify that kind of an expense in these uncertain times, I completely understand. But rest assured, I'm going to keep banging my head against this brick wall till one of us breaks. So thanks very much for listening. Thanks to everyone who's supported me in the past or presently, and well, let's get on with the show. When my supporters over on Patreon decided that Dead Space was going to be the next full series retrospective I tackled, I looked forward more than anything to this day specifically. I remember watching the first DS film Downfall a long time ago, and from what I remember, it was actually pretty entertaining. I had always meant to give it another watch, but for whatever reason just never found the time. So for a little change of pace, why don't we take a look at a movie I have next to no real memory of and find out whether or not it deserves a spot right next to Silent Hill and Double Dragon as some of the best game-to-film adaptations ever made. Yeah, that's right, I said it. What's up guys, I'm Jared from Avalanche Reviews. Welcome to the Dead Space Retrospective.
Above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky.
For those of you that don't know, Dead Space was meant from the very start to be a multi-pronged media empire. The goal was to not only create a world that can translate into the games, but also into books, movies, and comics, and I still think this was a great idea. Sure, if a game does well enough, you can expect some kind of multimedia cash grab, but how often do you come across a project that started its life around the idea of branching out? Like I've said about 1,000,000 times by now, the one thing that Visceral deserves credit for above all else is the amazingly detailed and convincing world they created with Dead Space. Everything from fashion to available technology has been laid out already, so when it comes time to create a piece of media outside of the games, all you need to do is follow the pre-existing blueprints. And speaking of those blueprints, their first movie, Downfall, starts out with a very Nicole-esque warning message. The only issue I have with this scene is that it confirms that every character you're going to meet in this movie will be dead by the end. And yes, we are dealing with a story that takes place on the USG Ishimura, so that should be expected, but I don't know, I like letting a movie lead me around by the nose instead of having it show me exactly how things are going to work out from the very start. Let's just hope it pulls a fast one and subverts that expectation by the end, although I am willing to bet all of my money it won't. We start the film out with the Marker's discovery, which is actually pretty cool since I think this might be the first time we've seen this event, and it looks like our guys here are in bed with the church, explaining how they found out about it so soon. From here, we're introduced to Alyssa Vincent, our main character, and I know that not because the movie told me so, but because she has main character levels of tude.
About fucking time.
It seems like Alyssa's against bringing the Marker on board the Ishimura based on all the chaos breaking out down in the colony, and, well, we know how that story goes. From here, the movie skips straight to the planet cracking process on Aegis 7, and it's kinda cool actually seeing this in motion. Then we have a few scenes to show that the madness from the colony has made its way up to the ship. Alyssa seems to be the only rational person aboard the Ishimura, as she's the only one even the least bit apprehensive of bringing what might be an alien object on board, and the movie spends a bit of time showing exactly how right she was. Meanwhile, down on the colony, a few guys from the Ishimura get a face full of what's been going on down there all this time, and it's, well, not the most desirable of outcomes you could think of.
No!
Leading the team aboard the Ishimura to argue over whether or not they should send troops planetside. Meanwhile, one of the colony's survivors gets the hell out of Dodge and unknowingly brings the first infector on board. And in case you were wondering, Alyssa has not lost even the slightest bit of her sass so far.
Don't fuck with me right now!
So Alyssa and this Saturday morning cartoon squad of PSEC officers head to check things out and discover an amount of blood I doubt 5 people would be able to produce, let alone 2. And, well, we've officially got ourselves a necromorph outbreak, boys. But I gotta say, this animation style just does not suit these things very well. I will admit I like this look for the human characters. Hell, I even have a soft spot for the girl with blue hair, but there's way too much brightness and detail shown in the necromorphs. I don't know, it just kind of ruins the mystery that makes the necromorphs so cool. Plus, I kept getting vibes from that old Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s, and maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's up to you. A scene or two later, the movie sets up the tension between the unitologists and the sane people on the ship, and at this point you guys have probably noticed that character design here isn't the most loyal to the series. The characters in Dead Space 1 and 2 look sort of like regular people, but these guys look like characters in a cartoon, flashy with all kinds of personalizing flair, but to be honest, I don't hate the idea. It's definitely a flashier coat of paint, but I've always been a sucker for that kind of look, so no harm, no foul, I guess. In their first real necromorph encounter, the PSEC team discovers not only that bullets aren't the most efficient way of taking these things down, but more importantly, they figure out that saying the word fuck over and over again is the only real way to make a movie feel mature.
Fuck you! Shoot the truck! What the fuck?
Let's get the fuck out of here!
And this next scene struck me as being very, very lazy and really weird all at the same time. Look at this shower head here. It's obviously a 3D render, which is totally fine, but it is a very low poly, almost PS1 graphics 3D render. Like, why start a close-up with such a low-quality asset in full view of the audience? So what you're telling me is a good-looking 3D render was just out of the cards for this close-up shot, but fully animating this fat guy's wiener somehow got greenlit? I don't know if I disagree or agree with these guys' priorities at this point. After this, it looks like the bigwigs have finally gotten a whiff of what's happening throughout the ship, and the PSEC team gets sent in to mop up this kind of sort of alien invasion. And it's here that I have some real issues. In animated media, it's common to see a drop in the amount of detail per frame when you're watching a scene with a lot of fast-moving action or a very fluid look to the animation. My go-to example for this has always been the first part of the Digimon movie. Don't judge me. Anyways, the point is I really love the look of this less detailed but very fluid style, and it shows up here in Downfall, but instead of being used for fast and fluid action scenes, we see it in still shots for some reason. Just totally unanimated frames that the camera spends a decent amount of time panning on. And I know I might be nitpicking here, but this makes it feel like the animators just didn't put a lot of effort into this production. Animation complaints aside, the team stumbles across this really cool scene of necromorphs eating corpses, and you lore freaks might have to correct me on this, but I don't think they ate their prey. I thought the point was to kill something so it could be turned. Maybe I'm totally forgetting about a key scene in one of the games, but it feels like the creators of the film might not have looked too deep into the games for inspiration here. So the crew starts pumping these guys full of lead, as you do, and I hate to harp on this again, but it seems like the animation gets lazier and lazier the longer the movie goes on for. Like, this scene here is just terrible looking to me. Maybe an entire 3 frames worth of animation every second has this part looking really weird and very choppy. I'll slow it down here a little bit so you guys can see how bad it really is, but trust me, it's way worse at full speed. I'll be honest, I think the Japanese put a lot more effort into animating boobs jiggling than these guys put into this entire production, which is pretty insane. But even I'm starting to get annoyed with this, so from here on out I'll keep the complaining to a minimum, at least as far as the animation goes. On the plus side, this fight does a great job of showing just how unprepared these guys are, and the part where the guy's jaw gets removed is just exactly what I expect from the series. And right when it seems like all is lost, a unitologist shows up to teach everyone that dismembering these things is the only real option. Then we cut to the captain, who's only looking to save his own skin, and doing a very, very shitty job of covering up the fact that he is essentially a unitologist plant placed there specifically to return the artifact to the church. Oh yeah, and he's also sort of kind of going insane. This scene played a small role in the first game, and it's really cool seeing it fleshed out with added context here in the movie. So the captain starts to lose it, and in the process of calming him down, the doctor accidentally gives him an up-close look at the inside of a needle. My only issue being the game made it look more like an accident while this movie made it look more sort of on purpose, but I guess this rendition is cool enough in its own way. At this point, nearly the entire surviving crew have jumped ship, leaving no chance of escape for the people left behind. In the meantime, the PSEC team are trying to work their way back up to the bridge, and the movie starts implying a necromorph bite has some kind of infectious property, with Blondie over here acting all weird.
I'm okay. Mind your own fucking business.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. In the meantime, our guys come across necromorph mainstays like the big fat one and these little leech things inside of him, and it's good to see they're exactly as annoying here as they are in the games. And in a very unsurprising twist, after maybe 1 minute of setting this guy up as an insane person, he turns on the group and kills Madame Tumbler in about the coolest way you possibly could kill someone. After this, the PSEC team eventually finds their way back onto the bridge, and the new goal is to head right back down and stop the good doctor from causing this chunk of Aegis 7 to drag the Ishimura out of orbit and into a crash course with the other half of the planet. Oh, and also Vincent just straight up clocks this guy for literally no reason at all.
That's suicide. You'll never make it.
Listen, I get it, you got that main character attitude, I'm totally on board with that, but you might want to start picking your fights a little better. This guy was literally just showing compassion for you and your crew. Then we move on to some more absolute dogshit stills, and our uni friend here starts to show signs of losing it. So instead of being another Ishimura statistic, he decides to risk his own life to allow a few survivors to escape. A less than worthwhile endeavor, seeing as we know exactly what happens to these people afterwards. It seems like Isaac's girlfriend Nicole is among the survivors, but they made her a lot more timid and scared, which sort of comes into conflict with how she was portrayed in the first game and in Extraction, but I guess I'll let that one slide. During the escape, our overweight friend puts up a solid fight, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Jesus Christ, this channel's going downhill. So our two remaining PSEC officers now have to get in the room with the guidance computer to keep the Ishimura from crashing into the planet's surface, which, on second thought, would have been the better of the two options. Not only would most of the necromorphs have died, but Isaac might not have ever been sent out here. Damn, hindsight, huh? Anyways, this is actually a cool bit of exposition for Ramirez here. He was a pretty uninteresting character through most of the movie, but here he gives a little explanation as to why that is, and once he's finally hacked his way through the keypad, pulls a self-sacrificing move, saying that he started feeling the effects of the marker. Honestly, it's probably one of the most emotionally impactful scenes in the whole movie. Once she gets in the room, the doctor starts making a whole lot of sense, saying the ship needs to be crashed to prevent anyone from getting their hands on the marker and to keep the necromorphs away from any other humans, but Vincent, being Vincent, responds in her very standard way.
Get out of my way!
After the doc hoofs it, Vincent ends up in a room with the marker, and somehow after walking into this wide open storage area with very clear lines of sight, she gets blindsided by a massive group of necromorphs. In an attempt to get away, she runs towards the marker, and it seems like these guys can't get anywhere near it, which does seem to go against the events of the first and second game. I could have sworn all the necromorphs were drawn towards the thing before. Well, whatever, Vincent starts seeing Ramirez's ghost after a while, which motivates her to record the message seen at the start of the movie. Seems like the plan is to open the airlock and vent all the necromorphs out, and that definitely works. In fact, it might work a little bit too well. And it all ends on this really depressing note, but not before teasing the arrival of Isaac Clarke and his team, which, if you ask me, is a pretty fitting way to end a Dead Space film. And that is the very first Dead Space movie. Not exactly what I would call a bad watch, but more like a pretty bog standard one. The animation and scenes of high action can be downright embarrassing, but if you get into this overly stylized Batman the Animated Series approach to design and proportions, you'll probably get a kick out of this. The story did a pretty okay job at giving you a look at everything that went down before Isaac stepped on board the Ishimura, but in my opinion, the Dead Space motion comic did a much better job at this. All in all, I'd say this is one of those watch it and forget it kind of deals. Like I said, it's not bad, but once you've seen it, you'll likely never need to check it out again. It does flesh out some of the events that occurred before everything went to shit, but if you ask me, a little more time could have been spent on setting up the normal conditions on the ship instead of jumping right into everything going wrong. At least this way we could have had some frame of reference for how bad things actually got, but this was a pretty low effort affair, and when you grade it as such, it's okay. Typically I would have a lot more to say in one of these videos, but after Dead Space 1, 2, and Extraction, most of this is repeated information. I really do enjoy this approach of spreading the story across multiple media types, but I think it's been done to death at this point. There's not much left to say, and you can tell the makers of this animated movie kind of felt the same way. You know, being totally honest, all this rehashing of old events actually has me kind of looking forward to getting some brand new info in the third Dead Space game. God help me. But before that, we have another animated movie and a motion comic to cover, so stay tuned and hopefully I'll see each and every one of you again right here on the Dead Space Retrospective. Well, hello guys, I appreciate you spending just a bit of your day with me here. If you haven't seen my other Dead Space videos, I'll have a playlist linked on screen, and if you want to support more independent, long-form content like this, I do have a Patreon you can check out. And to those of you who have already signed up, I just want to say thank you so much. It's kind of hard not to feel like I don't really deserve so many awesome people pushing my content forward like this, but either way, I'm really glad you are. So again, thank you all from the bottom of my heart, and here's hoping we get a chance to talk again real soon.